So this has been doing non-duality. Well, you may have seen for a little over a year now. And things have changed. So when Steve started all this, it was Steve doing it all. And when Steve dropped out of the picture, there was no longer anyone doing any of it. As you probably heard, there is nobody doing anything. So Steve is, let's say, so this now is apparently learning how to drive a large vehicle, a 40-foot vehicle. We'll just leave it at that, because this apparent learning is what's being seen now. This, what we refer to as learning, is being seen as there's nobody learning. Steve's not there learning. There is no person learning how to drive this large vehicle. And when there's training, apparent training involved in the apparent learning. And so when the trainer says something like, talking about the driver of this vehicle being extremely safety oriented, not spacing out. Have you heard the term spacing out in English?
Yes.
So that's the only word that may relate to the background here, which appears to be space, somewhere in space, in the universe somewhere. So spacing out in driving is something that is very unsafe.
Like, does the guy who teaches you knows about this non-condition, let's say?
About non-duality?
Yes.
No.
This non-vision?
No. So he's coming from the standpoint of a person, a separate person, a me, and he could be referred to as a you, and he refers to me as a you. So he doesn't know that there's nobody here learning how to drive a truck. There's nobody learning the training that he's teaching, apparently, to somebody named Steve. So when he talks about how important it is to be alert, to be careful, to be safe, to be aware, to be constantly looking at the road, at the pedestrians, at the stoplights, all the things that are encountered when driving. He's assuming that there is a person named Steve here. And what this sees, that there is no longer a Steve. There hasn't been a Steve for quite some time. And yet there is a seeing that's seeing the seeing doing what the seeing is doing. And it's not the same learning. It's not the same learning because there's nobody here learning or memorizing or even there's nobody even remembering what it has been told. It's just seeing what needs to be done, or what the seeing sees is being done by the seeing. It's all the seeing, almost like it's just the seeing, and the seeing the body, the muscles becoming better at turning the steering wheel at a certain time to make the turns a certain way, so the vehicle stays where it needs to be in the road, but there is no person there doing it. So what is all this learning about? Is there really learning? Or is it just seeing, doing more seeing in the way that it's seeing it as it's coming up, as it's backing up this large vehicle so it doesn't run over anybody or run into anything? It has to make adjustments with the steering wheel and the brake and the gear shift to get this vehicle to do, or to get it to go where it needs to go, or where it is expected to go, but there's no one even expecting it. So with this out in space somewhere, there is no spacing out. There's no one to space out. Steve used to space out. And that actually is still remembered as something that Steve would periodically do, but it doesn't happen anymore because Steve's not there to space out anymore. So the seeing that sees it is here doesn't space out. There's no, spacing out is not part of seeing. It's just not there anymore somehow. So the dangers of spacing out aren't there because there's no spacing out. It's just here. It's just this here being this and seen to be this.
What did Steve do when it's like when it's spaced out back then? Because this couldn't be more relevant to what's happening here.
With you?
Yes, totally. It's like insane.
Insane spacing out?
Well, the what's the word? Like the relevance couldn't be more relevant. Yeah.
Okay.
Because
Okay.
that's kind of like what's happening here, especially in like recently in social situations.
Okay.
Or in like when there's more, like for a longer period, more buzz around, let's say. it can feel like everything comes in, but nothing comes in a way, like kind of like, do you mean with like, I think I mean with spacing out, mean like um easily or feeling overwhelmed in a way, or like nervous system and brain, like it's like very sensitive in a way. That's how I see it. Are we on the same level with it, or do you
Well,
mean something else? Not feeling here in a way, like leaving the house in a way.
well, that may be your experience of it. Basically spacing out is just when the you is not focused, not focusing, when
Mhm.
could be said when the you isn't even there, but it's there not being there. Does that does that describe something that uh, spacing out is like, it's a term used for separate identities, for people that get lost somehow. They get lost in themselves.
Yeah,
So,
that's what I mean. That's how I. That's what I mean. Yeah, that's what I.
okay,
That's what I mean.
okay,
There's still the sense of time space being like here, you being there,
yes,
like subject object. Yes,
yes.
yes.
It's just it's something common to the self, just something that the self does. It may be it gets tired, it gets exhausted with what's
Mhm.
going on around it, uh, and it just kind of retreats within itself. Maybe the challenge is too much. Maybe maybe there's a daydream going on. It's enjoying a daydream, but it's lost in the daydream. There's all kinds of ways of spacing out, but when the self is the one that's there doing everything, then when it's gone, accidents can happen, because since it's the one that's doing everything, when it's gone, or when it spaces out, accidents can happen, because it's the one that has to take care of things, because it's the one that's there. Apparently it thinks it is, that it has a life it has to take care of, so its life can crumble if it's not careful about its life, which is totally different from it not being there, never has been there, and never will be there. I got the windows open, so we may have some airplanes. So,
Spaceships.
can you hear it?
You mean spaceships?
Okay,
Spaceships in your environment.
okay. Yeah, up here there will be spaceships,
Exactly.
but technically there's no atmosphere to carry sound waves, so maybe no sound. So when there is no self, when there is no you, what there is just what is, just what is, seeing all there is. So there's no spacing out because there's no one to space out. There's no one. There's no one to take a time out for 10 minutes. There's just all there is all the time, always seeing itself as itself. So that's what's seen here in the vehicle driving, that the seeing is driving. The seeing is operating. The body may be, hands and feet may be operating instruments and whatnot. It's the seeing the driving and seeing the surroundings and reacting as it reacts. Because there's no longer any separate one to do otherwise. There's no longer any separate one that has a life to be worried about. Yet work gets done, bills get paid, plants get trimmed, cars get washed, food gets eaten, everything somehow gets done by no one. And it's okay. Just because there's no one here anymore doesn't mean there's anything missing. In fact, it's just the opposite. It's not a sense of missing anything. If anything, it's as you've heard, I'm sure it's a completeness, it's a wholeness, it's a sense of not needing anything, a sense that nothing is missing, that everything is here, that all opportunities are, that total freedom, all the stuff that everyone talks about that has seen it, or let's say that everyone talks about or speaks about that sees it. And everyone sees it when the you is not there anymore. As you've heard, it never was. As you've heard thousands of times, maybe, there never was a you. Steve heard it a whole lot too. It didn't make any sense, really, until it wasn't there anymore. Until it wasn't there anymore. Then there was no one to make sense of anything anyway. That's the crazy part of all of it. It's just a big, like a big butcher knife comes and slices the you off, and all of a sudden everything is different. And there is no more spacing out. There's no use. It just doesn't happen. It doesn't come up. So the you is spacing out is just doing what it's doing. It's just doing you. You doing you. It used to be Steve doing Steve. Or me used to be Steve doing me. Or I. Until it didn't. And it's okay. It's wonderful. It's just beyond explanation, beyond description. Words say what they say, but they don't really work. They don't really function. They're not even necessary. It's almost like words don't even come close. To all this infiniteness. So do you find explanations helpful?
I noticed that I don't come to these meetings for explanations.
Okay.
I sometimes like to share like a bit of a story,
Yeah.
but I don't want to be I don't want to be heard. I don't want to be heard.
Okay.
Like I feel that that's not what I'm here for in a way, and that
Okay.
like I don't want someone to say, okay, yeah, I hear you. You know, that's not I want to be like I want to be slaughtered in a way. I like that. So slaughtered as in, um, yeah, I get you know what I mean, right?
Does it feel like getting lost?
Like if I want to talk, for example, like I don't know, when there's, for example, a panic attack. I don't know. I don't have them. Like maybe I don't know, but something like that. I call a friend and then we can talk about something, what happened and what could be a solution, you know? But that's not what I'm like. I don't like to have a solution because there is no solution. I know. Um, is that what you mean with the question? Like,
Well, you said you like getting swallowed up.
slaughtered.
Oh, slaughtered.
As
Oh,
in like the me being like, tell me that I like it's just the nothing, like the I don't want to talk to someone who tells me that I'm still can I do something, you know?
yeah.
But I don't feel that's the case here. So that's not what I'm suggesting. But um,
So the me enjoys getting slaughtered.
yeah, I just like it's so relaxing and refreshing, and Yeah, it's just chill listening to this message. Sometimes I like there's moments I cannot listen to it. I don't want to hear it.
Ah,
Um, but yeah, I listen to I listen every day to some speakers, I guess. So yeah,
well,
enjoy
those
it.
me's, oops, sorry.
No, go on. I say I just enjoy it. Yeah.
Okay. Well, me's have all different kinds of interests and all different kinds of personalities and desires. One of the biggest in this area is their desire to not be.
Totally. I think that's deep down what all me's want in a way, right?
Yeah,
It's not this, not this, not this, not this, not this, not
yeah.
this.
Yes, that is definitely there. So people have talked about on some level, some level, it seems as if the me doesn't want to be there. That was seen here. So Steve was having glimpses or disappearing. That's how Steve came around to all this stuff. I
Mhm.
don't know whether you've heard that or not, but
About your story, or yeah, I heard about your story, and I also had glimpses. Like I know what you mean when you say glimpses. Like
okay,
I'm familiar with that. And
okay. So
also, this is like I can say it's not, but this is like the whenever this message like was heard.
yeah,
Like I remember 2.5 years, I totally rejected it. I remember saw something from Jim Newman. I
yeah,
remember that,
yeah,
and I was more into spirituality, and like the spiritual scene was more like, oh, that's like spiritual bypassing this message, so don't
yeah,
go there.
yeah.
I think I was on that camp back then until let's say 1.5 year when it was heard. I was like, oh my god, yeah. And ever since then, I never went back to spirituality.
Okay,
Um,
yeah.
so totally, yeah. So I cannot say, oh, this is where I started the sentence. I cannot say this is. I can say this is not what I desire, but it's the only thing. It's to die, you know. But yeah, yeah.
Well, the 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 glimpses uh, the glimpses have come up because Steve was the one doing the glimpsing, right? Steve was the one having the glimpses, and so Steve kept trying to have more and more glimpses and longer glimpses, and yet Steve kept coming back until Steve reached a point, apparently, after he did two Emerson retreats. After the second retreat, somehow Steve got so worn out from all the meetings, one on top of another, one on top of each other, that he just somehow seemed like he gave up or lost interest or whatever it was. He just left. But there was a sense of exhaustion there. So it was even Steve that was feeling the exhaustion, that was feeling the whatever effort Steve felt. And what Steve was thinking was his process. It was all still different kinds of Steve, different expressions of Steve, until he was no more. So the me does what the me does for as long as it does it, in whatever way it does it, until it doesn't. It's just what's happening. It's all just what's happening then. And if it happens to be spacing out, then that's what it's doing. Spacing out in space. Infinite space.
What did
And-
Steve do when it's what did Steve do when it was spacing out? Like,
Well, Steve's not spacing out anymore.
no, back then, let's say.
Well, there were different ways. He would just lose focus. He would sleep a lot. One of Steve's favorite moments was taking a shower. After Steve is a swimmer, he swims a lot. So, well, actually, this still swims a lot. But Steve's favorite moments after a workout was a shower after the workout because of the endorphins, the exercise endorphins, the exercise opiates that people get after heavy exercise. They were really flowing at the time of the shower. So it's like exercise bliss. Are you familiar with that?
Mhm.
And it would just be bliss for a couple of hours.
Oh, for hours. Oh, wow.
Oh yeah, but that was for Steve. There's still, now that this continues to swim, there's still chemical reaction after the workout. It's still a wonderful sensation or a wonderful body feeling. But there's no one there having it. It's just there in the body. In the apparent body. The arms and the legs that are seen through the eyes, the apparent eyes. The apparentness of everything. It's all okay. It takes care of it all. Somehow. Do you have an interest in science?
Not so much. No, not particularly. Maybe some things, but
Have you heard of this new telescope they sent up? The James Webb Telescope.
I haven't.
Have you heard of the Big Bang explanation of the universe?
Yes.
Well, this telescope can look back the farther out into the universe that it is able to see, the older that part of the universe is. So this telescope is able to see back, apparently back around 500 million years or so after what is called the Big Bang should have happened. And it's finding things, it's finding galaxies out there that weren't expected to be found. So it's throwing the whole explanation of the universe into question, which happens a lot in science.
Must be continue to happen, right?
It is. This sees that there's endless, that it's endless. It's just totally endless explanations getting revised endlessly. So that there never will be an explanation for any of it that's adequate, or that's it. This is where words don't touch it. It's there, it's apparently there, and words are somehow a part of it, but they don't touch its meaning, because it's beyond meaning, or it doesn't have any meaning, or it's meaningless. It's hugely what? It's hugely present, apparently, in its meaninglessness. It's hugely there in its meaninglessness, in its impossibleness. Yet it's apparently there. Every time the day begins again, every time there's a morning, every time there's a new day. And that's just the Earth rotating, or orbiting the sun. And that Earth and the solar system is just a microscopic speck in the midst of all there is. And somehow that is that is solid, and that is at the same time empty.
It's wild, isn't it?
It's well,
Wild.
it's wild, and it's a wow. It's whatever comes up, whatever
Everything.
gets expressed. That's it. It's opposites and it's similars. It's there, and it's not there. It's female and it's male. It's supportive. It's supportive and embracing, and it's rejecting. It's everything. It's, you name it. You name it, it's there, and it's not. It's huge. It's huge in its hugeness. And it's just microscopic. It's hugely microscopic. It's microscopically huge. Maybe a song would even do a better job of presenting it. Music maybe would be more useful than words. Or dancing, or
Poetry.
there you go. That's a way of stretching words.
Yeah. You know a song?
Well, the more words are stretched or contorted or
One sec, I have to find my charger for my laptop, but I'm listening in the meantime. Yeah.
okay. Yeah, once words are there, and they can be used the way that they can be used. And poetry certainly gets a lot out of those words that might not be expected and only seen in the poetry, in the reading of it or the hearing of it. So that's art. Maybe art is at times a better expression or explanation or description than words. Art is often wordless, just sensation or somehow intuition. Even though there's nobody to intuit, things are seen when they're seen. It's all out there. It's all in here. It's all the same. Could be a forest, or it could be a bedroom, the walls of the bedroom, the trees of the forest, the nebulae of the universe, the stars, the dust, the galaxies. It's all the same thing, the same endless thing, thinging. It's thinging itself, always thinging itself. Even chills in the body. It's all the same stuff. It's all it. It seems to take care of itself. It seems to nurture itself. Apparently, in its way, there's a bird feeder outside of this home, and the birds are out there doing what birds do besides eating. There's baby birds that are being fed by their mothers. There are predator birds out there that are looking for their next meal. There are squirrels out there that happily eat what the birds kick out of the feeder onto the ground. And it's just a ongoing activity out there. That goes on everywhere. If there's not a bird feeder, there may be a field of wildflowers that are going to seed. The animals like the seed, so they know where the food is. They find it very easily if it's there. And that's this apparently nourishing this itself. Somehow this gets nourished this body, this here gets nourished without a whole lot of worry. Steve used to he used to look at nourishing himself differently, at working and supporting a home and all that goes along with it. It was a responsibility.
Did your way of looking at nourishing, and also as a homeopath, right? Did it change?
Well, the homeopathy, it's still an interest, but things have changed with that too. I use the website right now. This uses the website because there's still homeopathic work being done. And things have changed with that. So originally, Steve had homeopathy and another kind of counseling on the same website. I don't know whether you've seen that or not, but that counseling is not being done at all anymore. And that's being replaced with non-duality. The homeopathy is still being done, and yet there's a change regarding it, since Steve is no longer doing that either. So it will be seen how that all goes. Steve still treats himself homeopathically. Let's say this still treats the body homeopathically, and still treats homeopathic patients. And at the same time, the homeopathy is seen differently. Now that there is an interest in non-duality. So it's still happening, and it'll be seen in what way it continues to happen. The nourishing is apparently seen, or it's seen as to apparently be a part somehow there. It's apparently there in everything else. A sense of nourishing, a sense of embracing, or for no one is there feeling it. It's just somehow seen somehow. So the bills get paid. So the house gets repaired. So the yard gets done. The car gets washed. The oil gets changed. And Steve used to get all involved in all that, and often buried in all that. And that doesn't happen anymore. It's just Something is seen and something is done. Something is seen and something is done. And the doing is the seeing. The seeing is the doing. And stuff gets done. There's stuff is getting taken care of. Everybody's still eating. Everybody's still comfortable, even though there's no body. Life is doing it all. And nothing is missing anywhere. No holes. Unless it's a black hole. And a black hole actually is said to be filled with stuff. To the point that gravity runs away with itself.